of India's largest collaborative convening charcha. My name is Priyanka Sahai and I'm your host for today. I'm delighted to have you here in Jakarta. Some housekeeping things. For any questions that you might have during the session, please use the QR code that's flashed on the screen. And if you're not able to access the QR code, just type menti.com and enter the code that is reflected on the screen. With no further ado, I introduce the next session. The session is Assistive Technology for Livelihoods and Inclusion, Unlocking the Power of Innovation for Persons with Disability. This session is co-hosted by Mphasis. Please join me in welcoming our esteemed panel. Dr. Nonita Gangwani, Assistant Professor, University College of Medical Sciences, Delhi University. Arun Seth, former Chairman, the Nudge Institute. Ratna Khanna, co-founder and director, Gift Able. This session will be moderated by Sumit Chauhan, head of Mphasis. And with no further ado, I invite Arman Ali, Executive Director, National Center for Promotion of Employment for Disabled People. With that, over to you, Sumit.
A very warm good morning to everyone in Delhi on this cold day, and slightly polluted as well. So we're all aware of the conditions out there, but we're hopefully making this session a little bit warmer. So I'll just read out the topic here. I'm sure all of you have come prepared with a certain expectation. My name is Sumit. I have this fantastic panel with me, hopefully to make my job easier. Because as you can see, they are all the experts in the walk of life that they've had, the experience that they have with the subject itself. We are here to talk about assistive technology for livelihoods and inclusion, and how do we unlock the power of innovation for people with disability. When we sat down to think about what do we really bring to this panel, this session, the various perspectives that you will learn from here. But I think the key thing that we want to drive today and drive it home is assistive technology may sound very limited, like a genie in the box. It almost looks like somebody on a wheelchair, like we have Dr. Nonita or Armania. It may just have a visual idea of somebody wearing glasses like me. But I think the implication of assistive technology is far beyond and far reaching. It's a huge market from its commercial use case. It has a large implication on society. There are a lot of myth challenges around it, which hopefully we try to break it and bring you a fresh perspective as to how assistive technology is the need of the hour when we're working in this space with people with disability. Without further ado, I don't want to take much on setting the context here. I'm going to go straight to my fellow panelists. They've already been introduced. I would want Pratna, you here. You work with Giftable, and there's a very interesting story that you narrated, and we almost immediately took a spontaneous decision to start the conversation today with that story. So over to you to give us an idea what assistive technology from the space that you operate in looks like, and that should set a clear visual context to what we are trying to achieve today. Over to you.
Awesome. Are our sounds audible? Sure. So this is yes in sign language. So the idea is before we head out, we at least learn few words. So this is yes. Can we see everyone doing yes so that we know everyone is making sure everyone is listening to us? Yes. And we have this habit. Do you like this? And our head goes like this. So, ha ya na hai. Yeah, exactly. So yes and no. Is everyone present? Yeah? Okay. What are the colors you are seeing? Quickly. Awesome. Close your eyes. Yeah, close your eyes for 10 seconds. What are the colors? You'll still see orange, blue, yellow, probably because I showed them few seconds back. But then that's how a visually impaired would see this Rubik's Cube, right? And I still remember a couple of visually impaired came to me and said, have I won the game? Because everything looks the same. Can we make it more inclusive, right? And I still remember we made this Rubik Cube, tactile Rubik Cube, so every color has a different bead. And now if a Rubik Cube is given to someone who is blind, person would be like, oh, I have to get this bead at one side. And the best part about this Rubik Cube is, I still remember one of the corporate said, we want to give a inclusive game to someone who is with and without disability. Can you think of a game? And we said, we'll give this. Who will make this? We said people with disabilities. Now this was made by youth with intellectual disability who could not sit in one place for more than 3 minutes. They sat for almost 5 hours, completed the Rubik Cube. So if you see, there was inclusive game, awareness and livelihood opportunity. And when you go to aspirational districts, you will see most of the people who are on wheelchair will be crawling. And I was just sharing with Sumit saying, just couple of months back, we gave a wheelchair by Neomotion to one of our employee. And I still remember Anup sending us a message saying, ma'am, none of the people, children with visually impaired here even have UDID card, the disability card. So in 1 month, we got cards made for almost 200, 300 people, and everybody is now aware about their rights. Now the change that happened because of his getting the wheelchair was, he used to crawl to the department and go and get the UDID card made for all the children with disability, youth with disability. He says, today when I go on that Neomotion wheelchair, people look at me in complete different way. I have been respected from someone who is, acha, ye crawl karke aa raha versus, oh, what can I do for you? A change in people's perspective. He is having even more confidence to lead his life in a dignified way. And probably that's the role of assistive technology. It is not just that wheelchair, but how the whole ecosystem is working together.
Thanks, Pratna. Thank you. And in a sense, this is the beauty of inclusion. I would move to Arman here. While we just heard a beautiful story on what inclusion can achieve and can do to a person's life. But Arman and I often talk about, and this term that he uses of cost of exclusion, Arman. I want the audience to know what is this cost of exclusion. And then I will lead up with another question. But I want you to explain this cost of exclusion here.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Sumit. And so often, people with disability in general, they don't think about themselves as somebody who is able to contribute to the mainstream, to the nation building and so on. And that's how I think the perspective of people with disability be looked at as more of a beneficiary than a leader. Okay? And when you are a beneficiary, you're only a cost. And when I say that the cost of exclusion is when you have not designed anything, keeping in mind that a person with disability. And wheelchair is not only one assistive technology or device that a person with disability uses. This is a spectrum of things that you use. And when you and disability is not my condition that I have cerebral palsy. That's not a disability. The disability is when I'm not able to use anything, whether it's a public transport, whether it's we participate in education, participate in the labor market on an equal basis with others, then exclusion that I am being based on, then I become a cost. And I'm not able to contribute to the GDP of a country. This is about 7% in most of the countries which is into this, of the GDP is lost. In India, I think we don't have a study which can give you an example, and I'm talking about a country which has the highest number of disabled people in the world. Even if you go by the data, which is 14 years old. So I think it's this idea of assistive technology. So how are we looking at assistive technology? You look at assistive technology as something which can fix disabled people. The idea is to not fix disabled people. You fix the environment. You enable the person with disability of giving him, her or them a choice to pick the activity that they want, make it affordable and that will help him or her or them to interact with the mainstream, whether it is education, whether it is employment, whether it is a social life, and so on. And this cost of exclusion is so high and criminal. I will just give you one example which I think Arun said will relate with me. Look at financial inclusion of people with disability. It's, even if I'm getting a pension from government, whether it is 1,000 rupees or 5,000 rupees, I'm not able to use it. I am not able to use my agency to use that money in the manner I want, whether I want to save it in a mutual fund or a fixed deposit or a recurring cost, or want to withdraw the money and buy something. You're always dependent on somebody else. So anything which is technology and it is not accessible, you're creating that exclusion and that barrier, and which is converting people with disability as costs. And cost is something everybody avoids.
Very interesting, Arman. And I think that leads me to ask Mr. Arun here on. Arun, I think you and I spoke about the commercial use case of AT technology or AT as a spectrum of having a strong business case, and it's not merely just charity. And Arman just spoke about the cost of exclusion. Could you focus on how the global AT market and compared to the Indian AT market and the opportunities that lie in this? I wanted to focus on what are the barriers at this point, what's limiting the AT to not take up the way it should right now in India, and then what are the opportunities this market has and a larger, wider use case. And we know, as we spoke about, that this is not just limited to people with disability, but there are elderly part of this spectrum. There are young kids who have invisible disabilities, and not just kids, but adults who have unidentified or invisible disabilities, as we call it. For them, what is that business case? And for people who are working in this space, over to you.
Thank you so much, Sumit. Let's start first, not by quoting statistics or something, but a personal example me and my family are living through right now. I have a grandnephew who's now 19, lives in Boston. He's 19, non-verbal autistic with apraxia, that sounds a mouthful, which means basically he can't use his hands at all. He can't press his he can't do many other things. But till age 12, he was assumed that he was dumb, but he was frustrated. And at age 12, when he discovered the joys of an iPad with a modified one where only his right thumb works. That's it. Even though his keyboard doesn't work. When we discovered he was a genius inside who could do 10th roots of numbers. How many can do square roots? Very few. But he can do 10th roots. Long story short, he joined formal school at age 12. Graduated in time, back, got his whatever ABCs, full marks, and he's just been accepted to MIT. So, but how did he do it? He used technology. And he's right now with his grandparents in Delhi. We're working with Arun Mehta, who helped Stephen Hawking to design his speaking machine. And we want to come up with something that is unique, because every person with some disability is unique. You can't have one size fits all. That's the power. And I'll just read age 12. I'm going to read a little poem that young Viraj wrote when he started typing. It's called Where I'm From. I'm from unopened presents, from hidden hopes and shattered dreams. I'm from the mother who left me, sadly, she did, and the father who won't. From the eye of the raging storm, the hints of the promise of a rainbow at hand. I'm from autism and silence and hydrocephalus, from mighty odds and unsurmountable obstacles. I'm from fatherly dedication and a caregiver's love and the graciousness of God. I'm from the prejudice of society and the insensitivity of teachers. I'm from the ignorance of the many and the wisdom of the few. It's a long one, but this is what he wrote. So, can you imagine what we could not communicate? And now, long story short again, we are working with somebody in MIT who will pick up his brain waves from behind his ear and be able to convert to speech. So, where the power of technology is. And just a couple of nuggets from this. I'm from the telecom and the tech world. This whole voice bots and all you see were originally in helping people with disabilities to speak. That's where they all came from. So it can be mainstream. So that's really the example I wanted to give. And then the second example, I don't want to bore you with statistics. I have a batchmate of mine from IIT who became mostly deaf because of wrong medication. It was nothing to do with his birth or whatever. But we are working together. Have you ever figured out why your mobile phone has replaced the GPS, the camera, and so many devices, but it's never replaced the hearing aid? I mean, there's a technical reason, and we are working with Lava and a couple of companies, and we'll make a 1,000 rupee phone replace a 20,000 rupee hearing aid. Just wait for the space. So this is the power where you can take it mainstream. So, to your question of what's required, the global market is very large. There are people who are very large companies who make eye tracking. But we, as India, we've never looked at, you people attended the morning session. We've never looked at manufacturing for the world. One of the reasons we are behind in manufacturing is we wanted to manufacture only for Indian demand, and that too we divided by 50 people. But now with PLI, with all these things coming in, I sit on the board of a company which is a beneficiary called Dixon. Some of you may be aware of us. It's going to become a global powerhouse. But we need to have the denominator as the world. Always. Then you'll get affordability which Arman wanted. Without scale, there is no affordability. So I think we are well on the way. We've got Arman, thanks to Mphasis, doing as AD accelerator. You've got so many other entities doing it. And the collaboration is most important. But the most important part in this is financing. I don't know what, but in financing, the traditional, any VCs here? Good, then I can speak my heart. Because the venture capital industry is not looking at this because they need to provide at least 25 to 30% returns per year. So they don't do it. Even social venture funds, there are many, also promise VC-like returns. So we need patient capital and grant capital from people because this business is going to take 5 years, 10 years, 15 years to mature. And you know what we do at Nudge, we have Tea Cafe as an example. So many things, but financing is the fundamental of it. So we need to make sure that the government policies allow this to be financed. We were talking, if you set up a social venture fund, can CSR put it? No. We got to, all these cobwebs we need to remove. But if we fix the financing, I guarantee you, this will be a global opportunity for us.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And this whole business use case for it cannot go without looking at the research and innovation bit of it. And so from perspective of how do we bring in the user-centeredness and the research and innovation bit, we have Dr. Nonita Ganwani here. She is assistant professor with UCMC, Delhi University. Dr. Nonita, if you could share a perspective on, and being a medical doctor yourself, and I know a bit of your journey, would love for you to share your perspective, your own personal journey with assistive technology, and what is the role of AD in medical education as per you, and of course research and innovation being part of it. Over to you.
So as you can see that because I have a limited functionality in my hands. So earlier, like when I joined my post-graduation, so when I did my MBBS, I was fit and fine like you. But later I acquired some autoimmune disorder, due to which I developed this disability. So what happened is, like when I was doing my post-graduation, and as we all know, we have to make thesis and all. So I used to use my mobile phone to do all the research purpose, and I used to operate it with my nose tip. Like you people do it with your fingertips, so I used to do it with my nose tip. So that used to cause a lot of problem, like neck pain and back pain and all that. Because it is very difficult to use it through nose tip. Obviously, you have to bend a lot and then control it. So, but then gradually, through some persons, I came into contact with a company known as Dextroware Devices. So they developed a mouse. So now, when I control this mouse, it is through my head movement. So they have made a cursor sort of thing which I place it on my head, and with the movement of my head, I am able to control it. So now, so again, the problem is like the users are there, but people don't know about it. So when you spread the word, like if you develop anything inside your cabin, that won't work. So when I tried this mouse, it wasn't like it was a beta unit. I tried multiple versions of it. I suggested them various changes that can be brought about, and ultimately, then after about 1 year or so, it was finally launched in the market. And they also got many users in contact, and like in foreign also, and like it's not just me who uses it. Like there are people who are in army, and somehow due to some reason they have lost their hands. So even for them it is beneficial, because ultimately it will provide a livelihood to them also. So that's how it improved my ability to control these smart devices, and through it I can do any kind of research in medical field also, and I'm able to teach students easily. I'm able to interact with them easily, because so the thing is like if you are thinking of any kind of assistive device, so the thing is it has to be tried on the users, and that is how they can help it. So when we talk about medical field, so it's not like me, I need this kind of assistive technology. There are many doctors, like they need standing wheelchairs. So we need standing wheelchairs to operate in the OTs. So it is not necessary that if a person has disability, they cannot be a doctor. There are many examples, and we need certain things like there are visually impaired psychiatrists also. So they need screen readers, they need audible books like that. So there is a limited availability of these medical equipments, and it becomes very difficult to procure them, because like these things are not easily available in India, and even if they are available, they are not of that level, so we have to procure them from outside. So it would be like highly beneficial if like we follow this Make in India thing, and actually start developing these things, like even if a basic standing wheelchair which can be used in the operation theater also. So that would be highly beneficial.
Thank you, Dr. Rohita. Thank you for highlighting, some of the advancements that are happening in this space and the challenges that the ecosystem still faces, and a lot of people. And in fact, very simple. Right now the struggle to even have this this stand for the mic. It shows that we have this social bias around how generally people think, operate, and see and want to see things, right? And I think to have that perspective built in from a user's point of view, a person who's with disability and how he or she wants to access anything that they want to, makes it very interesting, this space to be very dynamic, and there's no one size that fits all here, and it's so it's hyper customization, I feel at times, what that person requires, and that this requires so much of investment, not just from from the financing side of it, from government side of it, but the entire ecosystem has to come together. And to Arun's point, it has to be patient. Arman, coming to you, and this is a perspective that we need to hear a little bit more on. How can we strengthen enforcement of accessibility norms and align policy implementation with employment opportunities for PWD? And it's a slightly lengthier question. I'll break it down. How can policy align to gain more employment in this space? So where AT comes into picture, and it has to do with people with disability. So that's a perspective we want from you.
So all the tough one and out of syllabus questions are for me. So, just to add to what Nonita just said, Dr. Suresh Advani, the father of oncology in India, is a person with disability, with 80% locomotor disability, is a wheelchair user. But when we talk of him, we only talk of him as doctor. Disability is not mentioned. It is important that we remember that. So when you talk of anybody, you talk of the office they are holding or the role they are in, and don't refer to disability or their gender or. So that's very important, number one. And there's certain enabling systems that's required to be done. Like Dextrovare is something which AT Hub is supporting. Praveen came to us at the time where it really needed support to sustain. And you were there in the meeting and we said, okay, this is where we put our goodwill behind him. And irony is that, Sumit, that there is no policy on assistive technology in India. There is no policy. So unless there is a policy, how do you start financing? How do you find incentive? How do you give choice to people? But again, another irony that we have is that if you look at national education policy, the national education policy for the first time in the last 60 years is talking about using of technology to promote inclusive education, right from early childhood development to higher education. And the policy talks about technology and so on, but there is no ecosystem to talk about startups and other innovators who come together to bring out assistive technology for disabled people. Affordability, there is no insurance which can support. And people acquire disability. People are born with cognitive disability. People with age-acquired disability. Why don't we have a insurance system which takes care of all your AT? The cost of it. If I am born with disability, the wheelchair which I'll use at the age of 10 will not be when I'm 18 and not do the same AT when I'm 80 years old or 60 years old. So why it is not, and then without the wheelchair or without a hearing aid or without the software or could be anything, how am I supposed to participate in education? Education is a fundamental right. The responsibility is on the state to ensure that everybody is accessing education. So there's huge gap, it just cannot be parachuting disabled people only as inspiration porn. Dekho Nonida ko dekho, Dr. Advani ko dekho, Farana dekho, and keep dropping this cliche of Stephen Hawkins. I mean, we have to stop, pause, and figure out that where are we not, putting our money where we should be. Look at accidents in India, road accidents, the world's highest number of people acquiring disability. Their life is completely lost. Today I'm working somewhere because I met with an accident, there's two leg amputed. What do? You go to an NGO. Why? Why the person cannot continue in the same role as they are doing? Why there is no protection for all those? And assistive technology, what is this mic? And the stigma of disability need to be done away with. And particularly in a country like India where 60% of us are below the age of 30. Young people with disability. And I will cite example of Arun Seth's nephew. He would not need any one of us to speak his mind. He will come and speak given the opportunity. But you take that thing away from him, he is nobody. You take this wheelchair away from me, I'll stop talking. So I think this romanticizing of AD need to stop. This has to go into the background. It's something which is automatic. So if you are there, you're included when you're there. How do you get there? If you are supposed to get to a school, you have to get into a transport, whether it is personal, whether it is public. If you're at a school, the school has to be accessible not only for wheelchair users, for the blind, for the people who have learning disability, with invisible conditions. You need to give them a choice of which technology do they want to use to be a part of that classroom. Whether that person is becoming a doctor, engineer, scientist or nobody is none of your business. This entire thing is to have your agency to decide what is your potential and do whatever you want to do. And making AD a part of your choice. How we have normalized wearing spectacles is the same thing.
Fantastic. Thank you, Arman. I think that gives us a perspective on what alignment do we need. And I think, beyond just saying, policy has to be in place, there has to be advocacy, but I think it's a greater lens that the society at large has to wear. And the fact that we need to normalize it. And as Arman was speaking, I thought right to accessibility is as fundamental as right to speak or right to move or any of those things. Unfortunately, it's not seen and it's not talked about in the same breath as the other rights to live as such they are. And of course, it's part of it, but it has to be spoken more and need to be discussed more. Coming back to you, Dr. Nonita, how can universities collaborate more deeply with innovators to localize manufacturing, training? Service is a very important issue. I've come across through my association with NCPDP and other organization that, well, an assistive device is given out, but the service is a big challenge. The whole automotive industry relies not on creating great cars, but having a great service attached to it. So how can that be solved through, university collaboration with, say, CSR or say, researchers or innovators? Just some thoughts on it, please.
So, CSR fund, like we know that there are various universities in India, and number of IITs and other engineering institutes. So again, if we hold some summit there and we encourage people to make assistive devices, and those CSR funds are actually used for them so that they can further develop, and then like if we follow the principle of nothing about us, so it's like nothing can be done without us. So if you are making anything, involve the users in it so that they can provide you a better feedback, and then the CSR funds can be used appropriately. And then talking about these service things, so it's like taking the feedback from the users time and again. So like I have been using the head mouse for past 2.5 years, and it's their daily routine. Like after every few months, they do take a feedback, and if the product is not working fine, then they make sure that it is replaced very quickly. So if that is followed, like even if they give their product outside India, even then this protocol is followed. So then only then like it can bring about a massive change. So from small steps going on to the larger steps, and in fact the CSR funds can be used in the medical colleges also. Like we have an enabling unit, so that is meant for enabling the students with disabilities and providing them right AT that they need. So if CSR fund, it's not necessary that they will remain limited to any engineering or development kind of thing. They can be used in the medical education also, because there are users there, and now because of the AI in the healthcare also, even a lot of AT can be developed for budding students with disabilities who are about to be doctors. So there also it can be used.
Thank you, Dr. Nonita. Arun, you had a comment on this, please.
Just something brand new came up. What you talked about servicing. So one of the companies which got incubated in my house is hopefully something you use called Urban Company. It started in my house. Yeah, but I mean, the idea has evolved, but the whole idea there is to create servicing. It's both. It's also creating jobs for the gig economy. I think we employ about 50,000 odd people. We have 25,000 people servicing aircons. So there's no reason why I'll speak to the founders and see why we can't do something in this space. This came as a because the whole idea behind that whole company was to avoid the traditional way of phoning up, etc. So that person who comes to your house does know about you, whether it's for a haircut or a salon or repairing something. So it could be a very interesting way to solve this problem. It's not going to be solved by somebody setting up a big thing. This is people who are specialized in learning this.
Absolutely. No, I'm with you on that one. I think
Thank you for that idea.
Yeah.
I'll pick it up.
That's what we want. I think there was this outline for the expected outcome. I think we achieved one here. So that's great. Pratna, coming to you, and I'm going to spend some time with you to understand. You are somebody who's at the last mile, interacting with people with disability of various kind. I want to know what are the most significant behavioral awareness challenges that prevent the uptake of AT, even when solutions exist. And we're talking about the existing environment and the ecosystem. Could you shed some light on that?
Yeah. So, if you see 70% of our population is in rural India. So, when we talk about 80, it's more of like city where there is no issue or challenges. But what happens in aspirational districts? How many of you are aware what is aspirational district? Almost 100 and, yes, I like that. Almost 112 places that are called out by government to be aspirational districts. Now, I remember when we started our projects there 4 years back, there were people who were either doing nothing or begging on street. To today, because of support of technology, because of bringing awareness over there, and you could see that here, that from all of us, like awareness, affordability, right? Today the change is they are living a life where they are making like the whole probably bad. Or I still remember Pradeep, who is deafblind. Now he can't hear, he can't see. He travels in Bombay local train without anybody's support. I am scared to travel there. Right? At one end, there is Pradeep who is using refreshable braille, working in one of the IT companies, doing data management. At other end, when we visited one of the rural areas, I still remember in one house, there were 3 deafblind sisters. 22 year, 25 year, 27 years. The only communication they have had for these many years of life was this. Whenever they were hungry, they used to do this. Now imagine if I have to be here for 2 hours with nobody to communicate, I would be like, I want someone to talk. 20 years, nobody to communicate. Automatically, with deafblindness, you will have intellectual disability. How can AT play that role over here? How can awareness, affordability play that role? How can each one of us play that role? It's about whole ecosystem coming together. I was just sharing with Sumit, I always carry this painting with me, and this is to show how everyone can come together. Now, this is a painting which has a lady holding a lamp. Okay? Now, this is a painting done by a youth with severe autism. Now, his mother used to always call us and say, I don't know what would happen to Akhilesh after me. And that's the fear of most of the parents, especially if you have a child with multiple disabilities, severe disabilities. And we used to say, don't worry, he will do something nice. That year, since we are into supplier diversity as well, we got an order of 2,000 such paintings. Akhilesh painting got selected, and his mother sends us a text. She says, you know what, Akhilesh is breadwinner in the family. A dialogue change from what would happen to Akhilesh is breadwinner in the family, and it did not stop there. Next year, we get another message. Hey, you know what? Akhilesh's brother has come home with a hamper. It has Akhilesh painting. He works in this corporate and he's come home with this hamper. It has a keychain which is carved by someone who is physically challenged. Polishing is done by someone who is blind. Akhilesh is going by. They show him the painting. He stares at painting for 10 seconds. He says Akhilesh, Akhilesh and walks on. His brother has gone on whole floor telling this is by my brother. A change from what would happen to Akhilesh, a fear of my family member is a person with disability, to proudly talking about him. Right? And this is possible only when each one of us can take that step. Aman called it out so nicely. It's just probably 2 things, like opening our mindset and bringing awareness. Disability will not even remain a concept.
Amazing. I was gonna follow with a question to Pratna, but you already answered it. So I'm just gonna take it as a comment, saying that community-led models, like the one that Pratna leads herself at Gifted, and I've been amazed by her work through these years. And one of the reasons I wanted her to share this perspective is that community-led models, can support livelihood for people with disability at the last mile, and that's what we need. We need more such models. Which are community-led, which are led by the community of people with disability, and that's very essential, because when we talk about having inclusion, we often exclude the ones who need to be included, and that's a dichotomy of the situation. We come to you, Arun, almost as the last question, and then perhaps move to the closing remarks. assistive technology has interesting overlaps with assisted living, and we're talking about elderly care here. How, from a point of opportunity, from a point of growth, do you see this space coming together, complementing each other, and growing? One complementing the other, and thereby, creating value not just for people who are part of it, but value for the entire ecosystem. Say financing, say people in the service, people in the other aspect of the value chain. So please share some light. Yeah.
That's a space where I personally spend a lot of time. I've been, like with Arman's entity, I've been on the board of Helpage for some 30 years, which works with the poor elderly. So we need to separate out people who are really poor, who need a different kind of a thing, versus people in the middle classes, versus people in other classes who don't need any help. So at Helpage, for example, we work because what happens in the poorest of places is something unimaginable. If you are elder and you're not earning, you can get thrown out because there is not enough money. So there is so many. By the way, that doesn't matter. It's not necessarily for just the poor people. It's worse in the middle classes. We get so many cases of parents being thrown out who manage to transfer the property to their children. The first thing is don't transfer the property to your children while you're around. We get so many cases. We have had crazy cases. People will us houses to sell and to help the good cause. The children who have agreed to the will after the parent dies actually go back and say my parent was insane, and they get certificates to prove he or she has been insane and challenge us in court. So, human behavior is the worst. We see it all. But back to the question which you raised about support. So that requires support from places like Helpage, and there are so many organizations doing that kind of work. But even there, we are able to give people work, making gifts. It gives dignity. It's not just money, but it gives dignity and some stability. But for the middle classes, for so many people, we are now in a longevity crisis, if I may say. That people will, not you, but your children will be living 30, 40 years more, thanks to medical technology and better health, better awareness. The question is from the medical profession side, this is not from, I'm quite involved in that. They would love you to spend those 30 years in an ICU. That's great revenue. The question is, how do we use technology to do preventive health? For example, I wear a diabetes patch, I wear a ring. All these devices which are there should help you to keep your health better. So at the end, and AI is going to come down, and you'll be able to predict things before they happen. So you will be able to live a healthier life. And I'm not meaning that you should live a life of a saint. But live a life, enjoy things or whatever it is. So to me, technology there, I'm also involved with a company called Emoha, which is emotional happiness for everybody. And we take care of people with, Parkinson's and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of technology being used to monitor patients. People want to, like my own parents wanted to live in Lucknow, but at some point we had to move them. But using technology, remote video cameras and all, people want to live where they're living. So all these technologies will create a big market, to my mind.
Amazing.
So just to add, he said it so nicely, the diabetes patch or something. Sometimes we take things for granted. I remember I met a deaf woman and she was in her early 20s and I was like, you're looking very weak. What happened? And she was like, ma'am, I was carrying 9th month and water burst. I had to rush to hospital. But I was not aware about pregnancy process because for lakhs together of deaf, there are hundreds of interpreters. And I was like, what did you do? I bore the pain thinking it is normal because in US and all you have if someone is deaf, it's doctor's responsibility to get an interpreter. Lakhs together. So I was like, what did you do? She said, I bore the pain. Next day I go to hospital. The baby born is still dead baby. Now imagine for 9 months, and these are the cases that happen every other day. And that's where you're probably the assistive tech, probably someone who could have just guided her on video phone with the doctor would have saved her life, right? So,
I would have loved to have this conversation. I'm not sure about the audience here. I'm enjoying myself a lot. We're hearing so much of different perspective. But we are already up the hour, and we need to wrap this wonderful conversation. Pratna can tell you if you really liked it, how you do it later, of course. There's a sign language to it. But I'll just quickly summarize some of the thoughts here. We heard from Arman the cost of exclusion. And that's something that all of us must take home with us today, because the kind of equity, the kind of dividend rather we sit on and we're losing on, both from the economic point of view and the inclusion point of view, it's very, very high, and time is of the essence. And I think that's something that as a group, as the audience, and larger implication, we must take a notice of that. To Dr. Nonita's point, the use case has to be hyper customized. One person, one solution doesn't fit it all. And there we need researchers, we need innovators to come in and bring in that solutioning. And researchers like herself are doing a fantastic job. We have Pratna here. Pratna spoke about how the last mile impacts the people with disability. And there are disabilities across visible, invisible. People are born with disability, people take disability later. There's one aspect I would have loved to spend more time on, how sports and assistive technology go hand in hand. And with the growing market in India, where sports is being taken up, and if you notice the last two Olympics, Paralympics, our Olympics have been doing phenomenally well. And the reason is assistive technology behind it. And of course, there is need to make it low cost, more effective, widely available, so that there is a larger use case to it. What Arun spoke about, how the business case of assistive technology not just has implications with people with disability, but elderly, people with invisible disability, and we need patient capital. So those who are, you already asked, are there any investors in the group? No. But if you know investors, take the message home. So take the message home. And I think what we take home today is a need for greater convergence from policy side, from innovator side, from the finance side, and people who are implementing on the ground. I think and then we need more players. 4 or 5 of us don't really do the justice of representing the need of assistive technology for people with disability and the larger use case of it. With this, I would close this panel. Thank you so much. And if you really liked it, Pratna, what is the sign language to demonstrate if they really liked it? If they didn't, then we'll know.
Already that yes has come, but this is thank you. You can do it both the hands or one hand. Don't give flying kiss. From the bottom of your chin. And seeing so many people and so many leaders over here, one thing I would like to convey to all of you is through one line song, which is, you may say I'm a dreamer, but I am not the only one. I hope someday you will join us and the world will live as one. So thank you. Keep spreading awareness. That's very, very, very important.